me go to LoadMaster 360. Let me take a look at this application. Let me start poking around. Look at the widgets, look at how it's performing, look how the traffic's being distributed. Maybe what's happening is something changed on the network where all traffic is being sent to one server and it's being overloaded, right? How are you going to know that, right? Unless you get those insights, right? The server's not going to tell you that that's happening. It's just going to be taking all the connections because something changed on the network, which is basically saying that this, if you were doing, we never even got into these details, but you have this concept of persistence or stickiness, right? So this is very important when you are you need the connection coming from a user to go to that same backend server, right? Maybe it's something, a user session needs to be saved. Maybe you have a shopping cart or something like that, right? Where you need to start filling up that shopping cart with your groceries when you're online and doing your shopping. And what happens? You go to another server and that session isn't replicated to other server. Now your shopping cart's empty. It doesn't know anything about it because that was on that server. What happens with that persistence is there's different ways to go around directing that persistence. One of them is source IP address. So it'll look at the source of the client and it will say, okay, your IP address, whatever, right? 10.10.10.10. I'm going to send you to server 1, and I'm going to, every attempt and every request you do, I'm going to send you to server 1 so that persistence stays there, right? And then another one comes on, 10.10.10.20. Then you go to server 2 and so on and so forth. But what happens is if some kind of NAT happens on the network where all of a sudden all traffic looks like it's coming from 10.10.10.2 or something like that, right? Which is the interface of a router or something like that, or a firewall, right? You're doing this NAT. Now all the traffic looks like it's coming from one user. All that traffic gets sent to one system, right? And that system becomes overloaded. So we call this lumpy load balancing, right? Because it's something on the network which is changed, and maybe it was working fine before. The network team changed something on the firewall, didn't notify, didn't think about what that effect would be on the application and the load balancer because of this persistence setting. And all of a sudden, now you have all the traffic going to one, and maybe in low traffic time, it's not a problem. 6 months down the road, it's Cyber Monday. Now the entire site crashes because now you being notified about that, of understanding what's happening is key to uncovering this stuff, right? Because it's running, the site's up and everything's fine, but there's some things that are happening there that aren't really optimized, right? Is what it is. So getting these insights in LoadMaster 360 will keep you on top of that kind of stuff, so those kind of things don't happen down the road. So there's persistence is a key piece of load balancing when it comes to those kind of applications, that you need to have the user session on that system. But if something changes where all of a sudden the persistence is now a bit of a problem because all the traffic is coming from one IP, then you're going to have that kind of issue. So being on top of getting those insights is just as important as getting the availability and scalability. I mean, that's all required, but you need to see what's going on too, and that's where LoadMaster 360 really comes into play there.
No, exactly. No, and on that, I'm not going to stop there. I'm going to continue that. But somebody has a last question.
Okay, yeah. Sorry about that last part. Is I just went a little bit of a tangent.
No, that's great. That's awesome. That's awesome. Are you kidding? That's awesome.